Hi everyone and welcome back to Compensation and Coffee. I'm your host Senem, a longtime HR practitioner and co-founder of Compport, the global compensation management software. This show explores the bold, game-changing shifts happening in the world of compensation and how we as people leaders can stay ahead. I have an amazing guest. Dear Ayan is with us today. He brings an incredibly diverse perspective to the conversation on rewards. Ayan is the Vice President of Rewards Programs and Solutions at the Adecco Group. He has led compensation strategies across different geographies, Europe, Asia Pacific, and LATAM, and built reward systems in fast-growing environments. With him today, we will dive into one of the most challenging and high-impact areas of rewards, sales compensation management. He's seen it all, and trust me, we'll need his wisdom today. I'm so excited, and Ayan, welcome. Maybe we can take a couple of minutes and you can introduce yourself for the audience. Over to you, Ayan.
Thank you so much, Senem. It's a real pleasure to be here. And thanks for the introduction as well. My name is Ayan, of course, and as Senem explained, I'm the VP of Reward Programs and Solutions at the Adecco Group. I have a second hat as well. I do reward partnering as well for the enabling functions of the Adecco Group also. In terms of my own global journey, it started way back about 20 years ago now, almost 20 years ago now. But my global journey in reward spans across, like Senem mentioned, in Europe, Asia Pacific, and Latin America. And that has kind of given me a unique experience to build effective competition strategies, especially for sales organizations as well. I think quite often when we speak about compensation segmentation, we talk about executive compensation being a completely different part of compensation altogether. But if we are really wanting our organization to do compensation segmentation, I think the best way to probably look at fast-growing organizations today, look at compensation segmentation in fast-growing organizations today, then we have to consider other compensation segmentations as well, especially for sales population, for digital organization, and so on and so forth. So to me, executive compensation is equally important as perhaps a sales compensation or a digital or a technology specific compensation today. And all of these together kind of drive compensation segmentation in the real way as we want to kind of, as we have been kind of talking for so long as reward professionals. But yeah, happy to deep dive into today's conversation, particularly around sales compensation with you today, Senem.
Thanks so much, Ayan. And before we dive into our topic, let me ask you a question. So you are doing rewards compensation roles for quite some time. What is the best thing you love about what you are doing?
I think with every organization, it brings certain challenges, and every organization has a certain level of complexity or has a different type of complexity. The fundamentals of compensation probably remain by and large the same and probably has remained the same. But I think in the fast-moving world of today's business, trying to imbibe those changes on how business really operates and changes as quickly into how reward in those fast-moving organizations can actually support solution building. That's really the key today. And that's where reward professionals really succeed or really fail. So in my view, I think what's really kept me going and kept me motivated is that constant change that reward professionals like ourselves have to kind of undergo and undertake every few years because of the constantly changing nature of our businesses. It's about rewarding outcomes. It's about managing risk. At the same time, maintaining fairness. These fundamentals have remained constant, but it's the environment in which these principles are applied which kind of makes the whole thing very different. So that's what's kept me really motivated and going in the space of reward.
Yeah, so it's very true. And you're based out of London. Adecco operates in multiple countries, including several Europe countries. And pay transparency, for example, must be a very hot topic for your organization. It's a big change exposed by the external environment, and it has big impact on the organizations, on the rewards teams. I think we have, as rewards professionals, so many reasons to feel young and to feel active with everything that is happening around us.
Completely. And just there's been too many topics of late which have caught public attention, especially with all that's going on in the space of social justice movement and so on. So I think all of these things just play an important part in where reward professionals also keep growing in their space. So yeah, happy times.
Okay. Then let's start discussing sales compensation. It is a tough nut to crack. And if you push too hard on targets, you will risk burnout. If you play too safe, performance stalls. So you need to find the right balance, I believe. It's like maybe making the perfect temperature for a cup of coffee. If too hot, you burn your mouth. If too cold, you are disappointed. It's really important to find and today we will discuss about how we can build the right balance and how we can ensure sales compensation motivates, incentivizes the individuals and also helps businesses to grow and achieve their targets, their aspirations. So let's start with a very basic and question, Ayan. So what do you think it is hard to get sales compensation right? What are the complexities? What are the challenges you are seeing or you're handling today?
Well, to start with, it's a very difficult question. But no, there's nothing difficult about it. I think sales competition is tough because it's a constant tension between driving, like you said, aggressive growth and preventing burnout, while also aligning with shifting business priorities. And these business priorities, like we mentioned or discussed at the start of this podcast itself, those business priorities are changing quickly or swiftly more than it has ever probably done in corporate history. New complexities like hybrid sales models with longer deal cycles requiring balance between base and variable pay. These are some of the sort of the nuances that have to be brought into our thinking as we think about sales comp. Cross-functional selling means multiple teams contribute to the same revenue outcome. So rewarding just the closure, the eventual closure, can therefore misalign your teams that actually contribute equally to the overall sales outcomes. So there's also the challenge of rewarding profitable growth over mere just revenue, because there are so many startups and organizations that are focusing primarily on the top line in order to get the kind of investment that they need to grow to the next level. There's been increasing focus on top line. So how do you grow profitably and sort of balance that agility with which you grow, but also needing the stability for your growth during your growth as well. Sort of balancing that agility and stability is equally important. Globally, in my view, regulations and cultural nuances have always sort of played a part in shaping up sales competition for different regions, and that adds to another level of complexity. So that's why I maintain the point that sales competition is another layer in our competition segmentation strategy that we reward professionals need to actively think of. And sometimes we as reward professionals kind of shy away from getting too much or too deep into sales competition because it is a complex topic after all. But it is the one singular way, in my view, to get the closest to your business stakeholders as quickly as you possibly can, and reward professionals to really show and add value beyond the academic sort of realms of possibilities of building reward solutions. So I think it's the best way to kind of make an impression and add value to the business directly.
I fully agree. And so what I'm observing is that in some organizations, sales compensation is handled by the sales teams or business excellence teams. HR is not part of it. But in some organizations, HR is part of it, or the leader of the overall incentive programs. I think that's a good opportunity for the HR colleagues to understand the business priorities and collaboratively work and achieve something good for the business and the talent in the organization. I fully agree with that. And also, you also highlighted the agility. So in my time, maybe in the last, which is not so past, but sales targets were changing, but not this much. So maybe
true.
2 times in a year when you discontinue a product, let's say. So those were major things that used to trigger the change in the sales compensation design. But nowadays, when I work with some customers, I noticed that their sales incentive designs change every month. So it's super agile, sometimes because of the internal dynamics, sometimes because of the market dynamics, but the change happens almost every month. And I think agility is the key word here. So whatever design we are making, it should be flexible enough to make some maneuvers throughout the year.
Yeah, and you're right. And we would typically, let's say, if once we have designed the plan and put it in place, we would aim typically for doing an annual review. But again, that's not something which may be relevant in today's context. Maybe you keep the plan design the same, but you need to change the way you look at the targets or recalibrate the targets based on how the market's shaping up, how the environment is shaping up, and how you are internally moving as well. So there's an added layer of complexity that the business environment today has added to the design, maintenance, and administration of sales incentive plan as well, which needs to be factored into your thinking. You're right.
Yeah. And Ayan, so you were and you're still part of global companies. So in a global environment, is it more challenging because every geography, every country, and within every country, every business unit has different requirements? Does it add extra? I think it adds extra layer, and it adds extra challenge. Would you agree? And if yes, maybe can you elaborate a little bit more on it?
Sure. And yes, you're right. I mean, in my experience of having managed sales comp across regions now, I have often found Europe to be, let's say, far more regulated in terms of salary, in terms of salary or compensation management altogether, with stronger employee protection laws, sometimes leading to higher base salaries and being less aggressive on variable compensation. So that's than say a US, for instance. So that's a cultural nuance that plays into sort of directly deciding how should your compensation or pay mix really look like. APAC can be very, very target driven with very strong emphasis on, let's say, individual performance, but also a growing focus on customer satisfaction and loyalty in mature markets. So emerging markets might prioritize pure volume based sales quite a bit over any other priority. In my view, let's say Latin America, often a blend with an emphasis on relationship-based selling, and sometimes again a mix of higher base salaries due to economic volatility in that part of the world, but still a strong drive for achievement, much like APAC markets as well. Again, US has been in so many ways a trendsetter in shaping some of this thinking. So a common thread, regardless of the region, I think it still is that the core desire is to be fairly compensated for one's effort and one's outcomes, and contribution to the business and contribution to your team to the outcome is something that's universally regarded as a outcome or a driver of your sales competition plans. I think that's the only common theme, but there are these region specific or country specific nuances which play a big part in shaping the sales competition plans.
Perfect. And thank you for sharing nuances between different geographies. I think it's really helpful. And Ayan, while you are here, I would love to hear from your experience some great examples, that work really well. And what was the magic in those examples? So any example that you can think of and you can share with us?
Yeah, I think I can probably relate to one of the definitely a couple of examples there, but I can definitely play out one example that I've had in my past organization, or experience I've had in my past organization. We have in my previous setup, in my previous organization, we had two sales organizations coming together. This was a post-merger integration scenario where in one of the Latin American markets, where we had two very distinct sales organizations really starting to come together. One using very, very traditional products to go to the market, and one more sort of digitally equipped and oriented in their go-to-market approach. So very, very different styles of selling, very, very different sales models, very, very different sales outcomes as well to a large extent. But as we as we underwent that acquisition and started to merge those two entities into having a common go-to-market approach for our clients, the acquiring company was the acquiring company, which was us at that time, was very focused on sort of profitable, sustainable growth, while the acquired company in that case was a very, very revenue focused, incentivizing top line kind of growth. The acquired company had a more sort of a consultative selling approach and a service oriented sales approach, as you would normally see in a digital sales environment, with long gestation sales, with sort of client support and customer support over a longer period of time, and with longer engagement cycles for performing sales as well. While on the other hand, the acquiring company, which was our parent company, was, like I said, it was focused more on profitability, retention, but the nature of product and therefore the concomitant nature of sales was such that it was more of sort of shoot and scoot. I mean, you just sell it, and then you are not really showing your face to the clients, probably not until the next year. So it was pretty much a very short cycle sales and a different nature of seller profile altogether as well. So post merger, we saw immediate misalignment. The sales reps were pushing for quick large deals, sometimes at low margins, while the acquired reps felt their deeper, more profitable client relationships weren't being adequately rewarded by a company. So that created internal sort of friction and overall sort of threatened the overall sort of the existence, and not just existence, but also threatened a lot of the client relationships, especially the ones where we were selling both, where both the teams were actually selling, and also kind of threatened the overall profitability of the business in that region as well. So we had to kind of re-architect the entire sales plans that we had for both the teams and try to create one plan, perhaps, which would then support the one go-to-market approach for a common sales team. And the intention was that we just do not look at pure top line measures, but the predominant thinking was, now that they're part of a larger organization and a larger setup, that we should be looking to grow the entire setup more profitably, sustainably over a period of time. So we introduced a component in our incentive plan, into our sales incentive plan, called gross margin and billings, and on deals encouraging sales reps to sort of sell more profitably and manage discounting. We added customer retention, which essentially was a big change for selling on the acquiring company's sales reps side, because they were not used to seeing customer retention and renewal based bonuses as part of their compensation structure earlier. This was done to, of course, recognize more long-term sort of value creation, stable client relationships, and so on and so forth. So for the new business, eventually, for the new venture with the common sales team, we therefore essentially created a plan which was far more, I'm going to say, strategically defined to address the underlying requirements of the business, and not just that, also recognize in the process how we approach the market as a common sales team, and therefore incentivize not just the top line outcomes, but also in the process sort of value sustainable growth over a period of time as well. So it was kind of a combination of your organization design, GTM, sort of dovetailing or be supported by a complete overhaul of your sales compensation model or structure. And this is a classic example of where a reward team could actually add value to the business very directly.
No, I think this is a very real example. And in my opinion, so many organizations today face this challenge, because merger acquisitions, they are part of our lives, and harmonizing the sales incentive programs between two organizations who are now becoming one is a very tough thing. And I think your example is a real eye-opener. Thank you so much for sharing it, Ayan. And I think sometimes sales incentive management sounds like a, analytical exercise full of data, full of calculations. But at the heart, I think there is a change management, and I think your example is a, great proof for that. So whenever you are making a change, you are driving a new set of behavior amongst your sales members. So, and every time when you're changing something, you need to handle those change, manage that change so carefully. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing this. And when we talk about change management, even when there is no change, it is difficult to explain the sales incentive plans, sales commission plans. And I have no exception as of now in my own history, Ayan. No sales rep fully understand and articulate their sales commission plan with all the details. So I never saw any example of that. I don't know why, but I think it's really difficult to ensure the understanding, to ensure the awareness. So do you face this challenge, first of all? That's my first question. And if you face this challenge, how can we more effectively communicate sales incentives, sales commissions, and their details?
I think you're absolutely right. I have not come across any organization where a sales employee probably, or some sales employees haven't complained that they don't understand the sales plan. It is true everywhere, every single organization that I've ever worked for. Sales managers or sales reps have often complained this. I think the key is, and like you said earlier, we often think of sales comp, and the first thing that comes to mind is the design, the administration, calculation, and everything else. We miss a key point here, which is communication. And how do we do this? I think what in my view has really worked well from my experience is when we have, one, simplified the message, two, empowered the managers, and three, especially in today's day and age, used tech for visualization. I think those are the three themes, I would say, that have really worked well. Just to kind of give you an example here. So often you would probably, let's say in terms of a commission-based plan structure, you would say, well, you would go to the depths of explaining this plan is designed to reward you for becoming a true valued sales partner for our clients, driving deeper relationships and focusing on products, this, that, XYZ, and you would kind of go to the lengths to explain what the sales guy probably already knows, right? Instead, just use simple jargon-free language. If you do this, you get 3% on X and 5% on Y after a threshold of Z. It can be as simple as that. We have to constantly think of how do we make it a marketing campaign if we did it like that, and reach out to our sales folks. It has to be as simplistic as that. Second, we often say, like I gave that example of the complicated jargon. Instead of saying all of that, if you just said, if I sell this much of product A instead of this much of product B, you will earn this much of extra commission. That statement is one statement that summarizes the power of your sales competition plan, but also drives home the point that you're trying to drive product segmentation through your sales comp plan, and there is inherent benefit in selling product A over product B. So if you can communicate it like exactly in that very simple statement, brilliant. Again, think of ourselves as a marketeer and see how we can position the benefits of a plan or benefits the what's in it for me to your sellers. The second point that I mentioned was manager enablement, and I think that's where enabling managers to explain your sales comp plans to employees or sales reps is the key, because quite often managers themselves don't understand the plan and they wouldn't hesitate a second to send their sales reps to HR or finance or sales operations to actually explain what's going on in the plan. So through different ways, those different ways could be role playing, having a manager's cascade session, or engaging with managers at a very early stage of your plan design could go a long way in enabling managers to feel empowered enough to actually communicate the benefits of the plan to their sales reps themselves. And no better person to explain to the sales rep than the sales manager. As much as HR or sales operations or finance ops may try explaining all of this, the benefit's not going to land unless the sales manager is explaining the benefits to the sales rep.
And I think when sales reps, sorry to interrupt, sales reps, when they don't get the clear answer from their managers, I think at that point, trust gets a big hit. When you don't trust your incentive plan, so anything can go wrong. So I think manager's role is quite important. Fully agree with you. And you mentioned about the third point. I'm curious to hear that one.
Yes, I think in the past, and this is not just true for sales comp explanations, by the way. I'm going to probably take an example of generally, not an example, but I'm going to just illustrate this point by saying that visualization and tech-enabled visualization actually helps or goes a long way in communicating a lot of complex things around compensation and specifically sales comp in a very nice way. So if there was a way you could show through an animation the benefits of your sales comp plan and how the examples that I took earlier of actually you selling more of product A than product B getting you more incentives, if you could do this through a simple 30-second video, which you could push through your internet or through an email, that's a brilliant way to communicate the message instead of organizing a town hall trying to explain to 300 sales reps how your sales incentive plan works. It's a brilliant way to do this. People are anyways on their mobile phones all the time. People are anyways looking at reels all the time. This would be another reel, and it's a reel that benefits them at the end of the day. So the more we make use of technology in communicating these simple aspects of compensation, and not just sales comp, but in general, overall broad-based comp as well, I think the better we would be as an organization.
Great. I like this, marketing ideas and reels, shorts. I think so meaningful. And I fully agree with you. Simplicity is a hard thing to achieve, but it's the best thing. So we should try to aim incentive designs as simple as, and it's also quite, I find it really weird, Ayan. Companies, they invest a lot on incentives. And if our employees, if they are not understanding it, so we are investing a big budget on something which is not understood well enough. So I think that's a big gap. That's a big problem. Yeah. And it is our role as business leaders, sales leaders, HR leaders, rewards leaders, that we need to fix this gap. Yeah. And simplicity, manager empowerment, use of technology, as you highlighted, I think those are the good hints and tips to achieve this mission. And the other thing is, I think this is also sales employees, they question their targets. They question the fairness of their targets, fairness of their incentive payout. So I think that's another challenging area. While handling everything, how can we ensure fairness and equity in sales compensation? Starting from targets, maybe, target setting.
Yeah, and I think that I think is key, because eventually what ends up happening is if one person has a payout that does not really suit the manager's expectations, then they would blame either the plan design, or they would often say that we are being unfair to their employee, without really looking at the fact that there could be an even more basic problem, which is the target setting itself. I think the question of equity versus performance and what's really fair is something that has kind of haunted the sales organizations forever. I think the message is that a good plan, in my view, a good plan design, in my mind, is something that just does not look at the KPIs and the metrics themselves, but it also looks at how you provide for creating a fair opportunity and equitable opportunity to make the individual outcomes really count in terms of their incentive payouts. So you define the work starts even before. The work starts at a target setting stage itself, and that's where the same team, and when I say same team, it cannot be that the target setting is done in isolation to the plan design itself. So the target setting and the plan design needs to be almost kind of worked in parallel and almost, I'm going to say, by the same team, so that there is semblance between the two and one thing feeds into another in order for us to then simulate and see where the outcomes might just land at different levels of performance. At the end of the day, at least now, there are various tools that are available in the market, which kind of go a long way in building, in sort of simulating the outcomes and forecast your incentive payouts and targets even a lot better. There are tools that are available in the market that help you with predictive modeling and predictive forecasting of your sales performance that could help you target set better and with lot of and a greater degree of accuracy. There are prescriptive analytics tools that are available in the market, and these days AI will not just tell you what happened or what might happen, but what you should do that would lead to a certain outcome as well. So basically, to hit your quota, you should focus on these type of leads or consider adjusting this product mix so that the incentive rate then could be hit, and therefore it therefore drives the strategic sort of adoption of your incentive plan automatically. So we have these tools that are now coming up in the market that help you plan for not just the design, but also the model the outcomes and simulate the outcomes, target setting, and the incentive outcomes accordingly as well, and adjust for all of that at the very start of this whole process.
Perfect. I'm glad that you touched the role and impact of technology in this whole story. And interesting, Ayan, still so many organizations, the large and even the large enterprises, global organizations, they're not making use of these available tools. They are still on spreadsheets. So we have one recent client, Ayan, and their scheme is a monthly scheme. They have a huge population, and every day they need to, it's a pharmacy change, they need to collect the achievements, the numbers from different systems. In a day, 70 million data points flowing. And before technology, this was being handled through spreadsheets. And it's unbelievable. So it's like a torture. Really, as you said, there's so many tools out there to help the sales incentive designer to make the best design, the right design, the optimal design, or to help the managers, understand and explain to their employees, or really use it for the benefit of the organization, or to help the employees to simulate, to predict, and to put their effort in the right way, so that they can contribute to business, they can get higher payouts, etc. So many tools available, and I think we should really keep our vision open and check out what is happening in the market and bring technology in. So I'm sure it will bring more efficiency, more intelligence, effectiveness to what we are doing. So technology is very helpful for this piece of compensation as well. I'm mindful of the time. I think we are about to close. Before we close, any closing remarks from your side?
I think like I said, I think I probably gave almost my closing remarks at the very start of this conversation as well. But I think for reward professionals to start being engaged in more and more in sales compensation and not just leave it at bay because it's a very complex topic, I think my first point that I would probably make is for reward professionals like us to start engaging with the business and start to diagnose what's really not working with your sales organizations and your sales compensation plans. Use as much of quantitative analysis methods that you possibly can deploy. At the same time, use and get qualitative feedback from your leaders, from your sales reps, from your managers as to what's really working and not working in their plan design as well. Don't assume the problem. That's what I mean. Second, of course, while you're partnering with the business to actually look at sales compensation plans, try and work through cross-functional teams that include sales folks, finance folks, business leaders, and so on and so forth. And then try to bring in diverse perspectives to see how best you can re-engineer a sales compensation plan for the organization. Finally, whenever you're doing something very different for let's say your organization in terms of sales comp, pilot test, and then scale up, because it's always difficult to scale something back. And especially for those people who are bringing the money into your organization, it is extremely important that one big bang of something that you fancy or you fancy doing because it's the latest thing in the market, without testing it that it may or may not work, is not really the best thing to do. So pilot, test, and then think of how you scale your approaches. But I think most importantly, if I look ahead and see what's really shaping the direction of this whole space of sales compensation, I think there's a large emphasis on sustainably growing the business by businesses. It's a very common theme these days. But at the same time, try and leverage technology as much as possible for driving better forecasting, better outcomes of your incentive plans. Try to bring in more inclusion between, let's say, a balance between a leading metric and a lagging metric. Because quite often we have sales plans based on lagging indicators of performance, which is just top line. But I think effectively, as our sales cycles are becoming longer and longer and longer, you, in order to keep the sales persons motivated, you will have to bring in a very fine balance of leading and lagging indicators of performance outcomes as well, and try and sort of incentivize across the two. Leverage on technology, and so I think that's probably the common theme I've been harping on for the last 10 minutes as well. But I think that's another thing that you should be bringing in into your thinking as well.
Ayan, thank you so much. I think this conversation has been very helpful, very insightful, eye-opening. And all the examples, all the thoughts you shared, I fully get them. I think they are filtered from your long experience, deep expertise. Thank you so much for sharing those. And I'm sure everyone here has picked up a few insights on sales compensation management. So thank you so much for joining us today and for this great conversation, Ayan. And thank you. And everyone, thank you so much for listening or watching us. And I'm hoping to meet you in the next episode to discuss another interesting topic around compensation with a different guest, with another valuable guest. Please keep following us.